Welcome to the Facilitators Deep Dive podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into something that might sound a little buzzwordy at first, discovering a team's why. But trust me, this goes way beyond corporate jargon.
Yeah.
We're talking about that deep-seated purpose, the driving force that makes work feel truly meaningful.
Absolutely.
And you know what? You've probably already got some experience with this, whether it's your own personal why or seeing how a strong sense of purpose can transform a team.
We often see companies struggling to define their core purpose.
Yeah.
And it really shows. It impacts everything from employee engagement to decision-making, even how customers connect with the brand.
It's like trying to navigate without a compass.
Yeah, right.
You might be moving, but are you heading in the right direction? Luckily, you shared a guide with us that provides a really practical way to tackle this, a workshop.
What's fascinating about this guide is its focus on action. It lays out a clear 4 to 5 hour workshop, which is a pretty manageable time frame, even for the busiest teams. It's not some abstract philosophical exercise. It's about getting tangible results.
Okay, so let's unpack this workshop. You're not just thrown into a room and told to find your why, right?
Exactly. It starts by setting the stage. The guide emphasizes the importance of a senior leader kicking things off, someone who can really articulate why this matters and genuinely values everyone's time. This isn't just another meeting. It's about uncovering something fundamental to the team's identity. And that message needs to come from the top.
I can see how that sets the tone for a much more open and honest conversation. It's like, okay, we're all here for a reason.
Right. And the guide stresses the need for diverse participation. It's not just the leadership team in a room. The more varied perspectives you have, different roles, levels of experience, backgrounds, the richer the insights will be. Think of it like building a strong foundation. You need a variety of materials to make it stable and resilient.
Makes total sense. It's like if everyone in the room has the same perspective, you're probably missing some crucial pieces of the puzzle. But enough about the setup. Let's get to the heart of it. The actual why discovery process.
That's where the real magic happens. The guide breaks this down into 3 carefully crafted conversations, each designed to tap into different aspects of the team's experience and motivations.
3 conversations, huh? Sounds intriguing. Let's dive into the first one. What are you proud of? It sounds pretty straightforward, but I bet there's more to it than meets the eye.
There is. This conversation is all about storytelling. Participants are encouraged to share personal stories, moments that made them feel truly proud of their work. And what's interesting is that the guide emphasizes that the scale of the story doesn't matter. It could be helping one person or impacting thousands. It's the emotional resonance that counts.
That's a really cool point. I think sometimes we get caught up in thinking that our why has to be about changing the world in some grand way, but it can be something much more personal and still incredibly powerful.
Exactly. We're wired for stories. They connect us on an emotional level and help us make sense of the world. By sharing stories of what they're proud of, the team starts to uncover the values and motivations that drive their work on a deeper level.
So it's not just a feel-good exercise. It's actually laying the groundwork for understanding the team's core why. And once everyone has shared their proud moments, where do you go from there? What's conversation number 2 all about?
Conversation 2 shifts the focus from stories to action. It asks, what's your contribution? Here, it's about identifying the verbs, the action phrases that capture the essence of what the team does. It's about moving beyond warm and fuzzy feelings and getting specific about the tangible actions the team takes day in and day out.
So we're getting down to brass tacks here. It's one thing to say, I'm proud of helping people.
Precisely. And the guide makes a crucial point here. Focus on past actions, not future aspirations. This grounds the why in real, demonstrable contributions, rather than hypothetical goals. It's about saying, this is what we've done, this is what we're good at, and this is why it matters.
I like that. It's about building on a foundation of proven success, rather than getting lost in pie-in-the-sky aspirations. It seems like each conversation builds on the previous one, adding another layer of depth to the team's understanding of its why. So what's the final piece of the puzzle? Conversation number 3.
Conversation 3 brings it all home by exploring impact. It asks, what's your impact? In other words, how has the team's work changed lives or situations for the better? How do those actions we just talked about actually make a difference in the real world?
So this is where we connect those actions to the wider world, seeing the ripple effects of the team's efforts.
Exactly. And it's not just about listing outcomes. It's about understanding the real impact on people. The guide reminds us to keep that human element front and center. adding an emotional layer to the why. It's about connecting with the human stories behind the data and the metrics.
It's amazing how this workshop is designed to draw out those deeper meanings
Okay.
and connect them back to the team's purpose.
It really is. And the guide is realistic about expectations. It highlights that a realistic goal for this workshop is to arrive at a why statement that's 75–80% complete. It's about creating a solid, actionable draft, not striving for absolute perfection right away.
That makes a lot of sense. It takes the pressure off and allows for further refinement as the team continues to reflect and evolve. So we've covered these 3 powerful conversations, but I'm guessing there's more to the workshop than just talking, right?
Yeah,
How do we actually turn all these stories and insights into an actual why statement?
you're absolutely right. It's time to roll up our sleeves and get to work. The next stage of the workshop is all about synthesis, taking those individual stories, actions, and impact statements and weaving them together.
It's like piecing together a giant jigsaw puzzle, looking for those connecting pieces that reveal the bigger picture.
That's a great analogy. Each team takes the lead here, reporting back to the larger group, highlighting common themes, recurring ideas, anything that really jumped out during those conversations. This is where you start to see those aha moments, those shared values and beliefs that underpin the team's work.
It's like those individual stories start to resonate with each other, creating a kind of collective hum, right? You can feel the energy in the room shifting.
Precisely. And to capture that energy, the guide suggests dividing back into smaller teams, this time with a specific task to craft what they call candidate why statements. These are essentially rough drafts, drawing directly from the verbs, actions, and impact statements gathered during the conversations.
So it's like everyone gets a chance to be a why architect. Using those shared building blocks to construct something meaningful, I bet that gets the creative juices flowing.
It absolutely does. And to make those candidate statements even more compelling, the guide encourages teams to link them back to specific stories shared during those earlier conversations. It's not just about crafting a clever sentence. It's about grounding the why in real lived experiences. It's about making it feel real, relatable, and emotionally resonant.
Smart move. It's like those stories become mini case studies for the why itself, demonstrating how it's actually lived out in the team's day-to-day work.
Exactly. And then comes the moment of truth.
Yeah.
It's a presentation time. Each team gets to showcase their candidate why statement to the whole group, connecting it back to those impactful stories they've chosen.
Ooh, I bet that's a pretty electric moment. It's like each team is pitching their vision for the team's core purpose, must make for some pretty lively discussions.
It absolutely does. There's usually a healthy dose of debate-friendly competition and a lot of refining going on. But ultimately, the group works together either choosing the most resonant statement, or if the best elements are spread across multiple statements, merging them into a single powerful draft. It's truly a collaborative effort.
Yeah, I love how this whole process is so democratic and engaging. It's not about someone dictating the why from on high. It's about co-creating something that truly reflects the team's shared purpose. But let's be real, a single workshop isn't going to magically transform a team overnight, right? What about making sure that why statement actually sticks, that it becomes part of the team's DNA?
You're hitting on a crucial point, a point the guide wisely addresses. Crafting that initial statement is a fantastic first step.
Yeah.
But it's just that, a first step. The real work lies in embedding it in the team's culture, in making it a living, breathing part of everyday decision-making.
Right. Otherwise, it's just a nice sounding sentence tucked away in a drawer somewhere. So how do we make sure the why doesn't end up gathering dust?
That's where the guide introduces the concept of why champions. These aren't just cheerleaders. They're the keepers of the flame, so to speak. Volunteers from the workshop who are truly passionate about the why.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So they're not necessarily in leadership positions.
Yeah.
They're the ones who champion the why, keeping it top of mind.
It's exactly. Think of them as ambassadors for the team's purpose. They're the ones who integrate the why into daily decisions, who remind people of the bigger picture when things get hectic, who celebrate wins through the lens of the why. They're the ones who keep the momentum going after the initial excitement of the workshop fades.
It's like they're entrusted with the team's most valuable asset, its sense of purpose. That's a pretty big responsibility, but also a really exciting opportunity. What kind of qualities do you think make for a good why champion?
Well, passion is definitely key. These individuals have to genuinely believe in the why and be able to articulate it in a way that inspires others. They also need to be good communicators and collaborators, able to work across different teams and departments to ensure that the why is woven into the fabric of the organization. And perhaps most importantly, they need to be resilient because, let's face it, championing change isn't always easy. There will be pushback resistance and moments when it feels like you're pushing a boulder uphill.
It's like they're the trailblazers forging a new path for the team to follow. They need that grit and determination to stay the course, even when things get tough. But it's not just about the champions, right? The whole team needs to embrace the why for it to really take hold.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so important that the why discovery process itself is collaborative and inclusive.
Hmm.
The more people feel like they've had a hand in shaping it, the more likely they are to own it and make it a part of their daily work.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like if you're forced to wear a uniform you hate, you're probably not going to wear it with much pride. But if you get to design your own, you're going to rock it with confidence.
What a fantastic analogy, and that's precisely the point when people feel a sense of ownership over the why. It's no longer a top-down mandate, it becomes a shared source of pride and inspiration.
This is all so fascinating, but I do have one question that's been nagging at me. The guide seems to focus on in-person workshops, but so many teams are working remotely these days. How would they adapt these conversations and activities to a virtual setting?
That's a great question, and it's definitely a challenge the guide doesn't explicitly address. There's no denying that face-to-face interaction has a certain magic to it. But I think the core principles of the workshop storytelling, focusing on actions and impact, can still be translated to a virtual environment. Just requires a bit more creativity and intentionality.
Right, it's like cooking a favorite recipe in a different kitchen. You might need to adjust the cooking methods slightly, but the essential ingredients remain the same.
Exactly. Instead of gathering everyone in a conference room, you might use a virtual whiteboard to capture stories and insights. Instead of breakout groups huddled around flip charts, you could use video conferencing tools for smaller group discussions. And maybe you incorporate asynchronous elements, giving people time to reflect and share their thoughts in writing. Before coming together for live discussions, there are so many possibilities.
I love that you're highlighting the possibilities rather than focusing on the limitations. It's about finding ways to capture that same energy and collaborative spirit in a digital space. Maybe our listener will be inspired to develop their own virtual why discovery toolkit. But I'm curious, what about you? What stood out to you as the most valuable or intriguing aspect of this guide?
That's a tough one. But I think what really struck me is the guide's emphasis on storytelling as a tool for uncovering purpose. We often think of storytelling as something soft and fluffy, but this guide really highlights its power to unearth deeper meaning, to connect people on an emotional level, and to inspire action.
I completely agree. There's something about a good story that bypasses our logical minds and goes straight to our hearts. And when you're talking about something as important as a team's why, that emotional connection is crucial. It's inspiring to think about all the possibilities that open up when a team truly connects with its why. But let's be real for a moment. This journey isn't always sunshine and rainbows. There are going to be bumps along the way, right?
Absolutely. As with any meaningful endeavor, discovering and living by your why comes with its share of challenges. It's not a one-and-done exercise. It requires ongoing effort commitment and a willingness to navigate the inevitable obstacles that arise.
It's like setting out on a hike to a breathtaking vista. You know the view will be worth it, but you also know there will be steep climbs, rocky terrain, and moments when you might question if you'll ever reach the top.
What a perfect analogy. And one of the first hurdles teams often encounter is getting bogged down in the semantics of the why statement itself. They spend countless hours agonizing over every word, trying to craft the most perfect, eloquent, and all-encompassing sentence ever written.
Oh, I can totally see that happening. It's easy to get lost in the weeds trying to make the why statement sound super profound and clever, but doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose?
It does. Because at the end of the day, the why is more than just a nicely crafted sentence. It's a guiding principle, a North Star that should inform actions and decisions. It needs to be clear, concise, and easily understood by everyone on the team.
It's like a compass, right? It doesn't need to be adorned with jewels and fancy engravings. It just needs to point you in the right direction.
Precisely. And that's something the guide emphasizes, progress over perfection. It's more important to have a workable draft that you can start using immediately than to endlessly debate the nuances of grammar and syntax.
So it's like saying, let's get this compass out of the box and start using it to navigate, even if it's not the most beautiful compass in the world.
Exactly. And as you use it, as you encounter different challenges and opportunities, you can refine it, adjust it, and make sure it's always pointing you toward your true north. But getting hung up on the wording is just one of the challenges. Perhaps an even bigger obstacle is resistance to change. When you introduce a new why, it can disrupt existing power structures, challenge long-held beliefs, and make people feel uncomfortable.
That makes sense. Change is hard, even when it's positive change. People get attached to the way things have always been done, even if it's no longer serving them well.
It's human nature. And that's where strong leadership and clear communication become absolutely crucial. Leaders need to create a safe space for dialogue, acknowledge concerns, and clearly articulate the benefits of embracing the new why. It's about tainting a compelling vision of the future that everyone can get excited about.
It's like planting a seed. You need to nurture it, provide the right conditions for it to grow, and be patient as it takes root. But even with the best intentions and the most supportive environment, there's still a chance that the why won't fully take hold.
You're right. It's not enough to simply announce the new why and expect everyone to fall in line. It requires ongoing attention reinforcement and integration into the team's culture. Otherwise, it risks becoming just another empty slogan forgotten as soon as the initial excitement fades.
And that's where those why champions we talked about earlier play such a vital role, right? They're the ones who keep the flame burning bright, who make sure the why stays top of mind and continues to guide decision-making.
Absolutely. They're the cheerleaders, the evangelists, the ones who constantly remind people of the bigger picture and the purpose behind their work. They're also the ones who hold the team accountable, making sure the why isn't just something you talk about, but something you actually live by.
It's amazing how such a seemingly simple concept, discovering a team's why, can lead to such profound shifts in behavior culture and even individual mindsets. It's not just about coming up with a catchy slogan, it's about tapping into a deeper source of motivation and inspiration.
And it's not limited to teams and organizations either. The principles we've discussed today can be applied to any aspect of life where you're seeking greater purpose and meaning.
Ooh, I love that you're bringing it back to our listener. So it's like saying, hey, if this wide discovery process resonates with you, don't limit it to your work life. Apply it to your personal goals, your relationships, your community involvement, anywhere you're looking to make a difference.
Exactly.
What are you passionate about? What impact do you want to have on the world? What legacy do you want to leave behind? These are the questions that can guide you on your own personal why journey.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. We've explored the power of storytelling, the importance of action, and the challenges of embedding purpose into a team's culture, and even the potential for personal transformation. It's a lot to unpack, but I think the key takeaway is that discovering your why, whether as a team or an individual, is an incredibly rewarding journey.
It's a journey that requires courage, vulnerability, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. But the rewards are well worth the effort. When you connect with your why, you tap into a source of energy, motivation, and inspiration that can transform your life and the lives of those around you.
So to our listener out there, we encourage you to embark on your own why discovery journey. Don't be afraid to ask tough questions, share your stories, and embrace the challenges along the way. And remember, it's not about finding the perfect words. It's about finding the purpose that sets your soul on fire. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive. It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep living your why.
See you next time on the Facilitators Deep Dive podcast, your podcast on your way to facilitation mastery. Until next time.
See you then.